chosen. You feel the weight of this moment before a single word is spoken, a heavy, sacred pressure that has been pulling at the edges of your spirit since the veil of sleep was torn away in the stillness of the early morning hours. Perhaps you found yourself wide awake between 3 and 5 o'clock today, staring into the velvet darkness as the world around you remained oblivious to the tectonic shifts occurring in the unseen realm, and in that silence, you felt it. A persistent ringing in your ears, a high-pitched frequency that felt less like noise and more like information, like celestial codes loading into the very marrow of your bones. This was not insomnia, nor was it a random fluctuation of your biology, but rather a direct synchronization with the throne room of the Most High, a moment where your physical vessel was being prepared to carry the weight of a glory you have prayed for but could not yet contain. You have been carrying the old life on your shoulders like a garment that has grown too small, the fabric fraying and the seams bursting under the pressure of the new identity that is manifesting within you. And today, this Monday, April 27th, 2026, marks the precise intersection where your endurance meets its divine reward. This date was not chosen by a calendar, but was etched into the fabric of time before the foundations of the world were laid, serving as a lighthouse for your weary soul to find its way back to the truth of its origin. Do not look at this screen as a mere product of technology or a random occurrence in your digital stream, for what you are witnessing is a divine bypass of the systems of man. You must understand that the algorithm which brought you here is not a sequence of code or a mathematical equation designed by engineers, but rather a vibrational sieve, a spiritual filter that has been tuned to the exact frequency of your desperation and your faith. It has discarded thousands of souls who were not ready for this weight, letting them pass by into the trivialities of the world. But it held you. It stopped you, and it demanded your attention because your signature has finally reached the pitch of resonance required for the shift. This is your personal incoming call from the heavens, a signal sent through the noise of the matrix to reach the one who has been marked for a radical transformation that begins in exactly 7 days. You can feel the atmosphere in the room changing even now, the air becoming thick with a presence that demands your stillness, as if the universe itself has held its breath to see if you would answer the summons that has been ringing through your lineage for generations. The pressure you feel on your shoulders is not your burden to carry anymore. It is the friction of the old reality rubbing against the new world that is being birthed through your very DNA. You have spent so long questioning if you were heard, wondering if the delays were signs of abandonment. But on this day, April 27th, the silence is being broken by a decree that cannot be reversed. Every moment of questioning, every night where you felt the crushing weight of your old life trying to extinguish your spark, was simply the compression required to turn your carbon into diamond. You are standing at the edge of a 7-day window where the parameters of your existence are being rewritten, and the ringing in your ears is the sound of the old gates being torn from their hinges to make way for the King of Glory to enter your story. Do not turn away. Do not allow the distractions of the mundane to pull you back into the sleep of the forgotten. For the call is live, the connection is established, and heaven is waiting for the recognition in your eyes that the time for waiting is over. You are not watching a video. You are participating in a sovereign alignment that was scheduled before you took your first breath. And the truth that is about to be revealed will shift your timeline so violently that the person you were 10 minutes ago will soon seem like a distant, faded memory of a stranger you once knew. You have looked at the landscape of your recent years and called it a desert. But heaven calls it an operating room where the architecture of your soul was being meticulously reconstructed. every betrayal that left you gasping for air, every financial void that made you question your identity, and every season of profound isolation was a precision strike by the universe to remove what was never meant to accompany you into the frequency of the new earth. You felt as though you were being hollowed out, but in reality, you were being expanded. For the resource that is arriving in 7 days requires a vessel that has been purged of all worldly debris. The universe had to perform a radical surgery on your life, cutting away the necrotic tissue of old dependencies and the parasitic attachments that were draining your spiritual vitality without your knowledge or consent. You felt the cold edge of the knife, the sting of being overlooked, and the ache of the silence. But you failed to see the steady hand of the great architect, who was ensuring that not a single drop of your essence would be wasted on those who did not value your light. This perceived distance from the world was never a rejection by the Father. It was a sanctuary of silence, a divine cocoon where the noise of the collective could no longer drown out the specific, unique frequency of your own soul. There are those from your past who remain in the shadows even now, digital and spiritual voyeurs who have been monitoring your journey with a hidden, desperate hunger for your collapse. These watchers, some once close to you and others who observed from afar, have been waiting for the moment you finally break under the pressure of the wilderness, hoping to validate their own stagnation by witnessing your failure. They secretly search for your name. They ask about you in hushed tones to mutual acquaintances, and they hover on the periphery of your awareness like ghosts of a cycle you have already outgrown. You must understand that their sudden, often painful exit from your life was a divine mandate of protection, a firewall erected by the heavens to ensure that they could not witness or contaminate the blueprint of your coming breakthrough. You were removed from their sight because their envy would have acted as a tether, a spiritual gravity pulling you back into the mediocrity of the matrix just as you were preparing for a quantum leap. Their silence is your safety, and their total absence is the evidence that you have been successfully relocated to a higher jurisdiction where their low vibrational influence can no longer find a foothold. You were never left behind while the world moved forward. You were placed in a divine reserve, a vacuum of preparation where your spirit could be hardened against the volatile elements of the great transition. Think of a vessel being tempered in the heat of a furnace. If it were removed too early, it would shatter under the pressure of the deep sea. And so you were kept in the dark to ensure your structural integrity. You were sequestered so that your burgeoning light would not be consumed by matrix parasites, those energetic entities and societal systems that feed on the unrefined potential of the chosen souls. By stripping away your external comforts and financial cushions, the universe forced you to generate your own internal heat, creating a self-sustaining flame that no longer requires the oxygen of human validation to remain lit. This period of emptiness was not a lack, but a clearing of the karmic slate, a total erasure of the debts and expectations that once bound you to the old world. You have been hardened in this vacuum, so that when the gates finally swing open, you will emerge unbreakable, a sovereign being who knows that their strength is sourced from the eternal and not the temporal. The blueprint has been finalized, and now the construction of your new reality begins, with a precision that defies all human logic. You are not witnessing a mere shift in circumstances or a lucky break in the sequence of your days, but a fundamental DNA reprogramming that is occurring within the very fabric of your biological and spiritual architecture. As you sit here, breathing in the frequency of this message, The light codes you received in the early morning hours are beginning to activate the dormant strands of your divine heritage, rewriting the scripts of limitation that were etched into your lineage by generations of struggle. This is the mechanics of the quantum leap, a transition where you no longer move step by step through the dense corridors of the third dimension, but instead fold time itself to arrive at the destination that has been calling your name. You are entering into the fifth dimension of consciousness, a realm where thought and manifestation exist in a seamless dance, and where the heavy, lagging reality of the past can no longer survive the velocity of your new vibration. This transition is not a reward for your labor, nor is it a payment for your suffering. For the heavens do not operate on the transactional logic of the marketplace. Instead, it is occurring because your vibrational signature has finally reached the exact pitch that matches the resource awaiting you. You have stopped trying to force the doors open with the strength of your hands, and have instead become the key through the simple, profound act of resonance, allowing the universe to recognize you as the rightful heir to the promises you have carried in secret for so long. The spiritual laws that once bound you to a cycle of lack and repetition are being dissolved in an instant, replaced by a total erasure of karmic debt that has trailed your soul like a shadow through lifetimes of wandering. Every ancestral knot that kept your family in a loop of almost enough is being untied by invisible hands, and every spiritual weight that made your progress feel like a climb up a glass mountain is being disintegrated by the sheer heat of this divine alignment. The gates that once stood as immovable barriers between you and your purpose are being torn from their hinges, not by the battering ram of your effort, but by the sheer gravitational pull of your destiny as it draws near to claim you. You are witnessing the mechanics of a river entering a dry riverbed. For years you have been the scorched earth, cracked and waiting, wondering if the moisture of blessing would ever find its way back to your banks. But the floodgates have been activated in the higher realms, and the surge that is coming toward you in these next 7 days is not a trickle, but a rushing torrent of provision and clarity that will fill every crevice of your existence until the memory of the drought is washed away forever. This is the sovereign work of the Kairos moment, where the linear time of man is superseded by the vertical time of the Creator, and where a decade of progress is collapsed into a single week of supernatural acceleration. The resistance you once faced from the world was merely the friction of an old system trying to hold on to a soul that was already outgrowing its boundaries. You must release the need to understand the how through the lens of your intellect. For the mechanics of this shift are operating on a scale that transcends the 5 senses and the limitations of the matrix. Your only requirement is to remain in the state of receptivity, to allow the reprogramming to complete its work without the interference of your old fears or your ingrained habits of survival. The universe is not asking you to build the bridge. It is informing you that the bridge has already been manifested, and you are simply being given the vision to see it and the frequency to walk upon it. Every cell in your body is vibrating with a new intensity, a quiet hum that signals your readiness to occupy the space that was reserved for you before time began. The resources, the connections, and the divine insights are not being sent to you from a distance. They are emerging from within the very field you now inhabit, because you and the breakthrough have finally become one. The 7-day countdown is not a period of waiting, but a period of integration, where your physical reality catches up to the spiritual truth that has already been settled in the courts of heaven. You are the path. You are the gateway. and the shift is the natural, inevitable flowering of the seed of divinity that has finally found its season. As the light of the fifth dimension begins to permeate your daily experience, you will find that the obstacles which once seemed like mountains have become like mist, dissolving in the presence of your newly aligned will. The force that is now consolidating within your spirit is a sacred momentum, a divine gestation that requires the absolute protection of the law of silence. You must understand that when you speak of a miracle before it has fully anchored in the physical, you are essentially opening a valve in your spiritual container, allowing the pressurized grace of heaven to leak out into a world that cannot contain it. The people in your old cycle, those who are accustomed to your struggle and who have built their own identities around helping you or pitying you, cannot breathe the air of the fifth dimension. And when you describe your new horizon to them, their doubt acts as a corrosive agent against your faith. Silence is not a lack of communication. It is a strategic fortification. It is the building of a sacred wall around the flickering flame of your new identity, so that the winds of the old world cannot extinguish it before it becomes a forest fire. You are being commanded to hold this light in the secret place, to let it marinate in the stillness of your own heart, for the energy you are receiving in these 7 days is too volatile to be shared with those who still operate on the frequency of the matrix. To speak of it is to invite the scrutiny of the uninitiated, and their skepticism will act as a spiritual gravity, trying to pull your rising soul back down to the level of their own limitations. Treat this shift as a secret pregnancy of the spirit, a holy secret between you and the Creator, and know that every time you resist the urge to explain yourself, you are doubling the potency of the manifestation that is coming. As your vibrational field begins to glow with the intensity of this transition, the old environment you are departing will react with a desperate, subconscious instinct to pull you back. These are the energy vampires, the matrix parasites who have fed on your empathy and your accessibility for years, and they can feel the tether snapping. They will begin to probe your field with sudden, unexplained phone calls, checking in messages that feel like anchors, or subtle reminders of your past failures designed to trigger the old guilt that once kept you small. They do not do this because they are evil, but because your elevation exposes their stagnation, and the light you now carry is a blinding reminder of the path they refused to walk. They will try to provoke an emotional reaction from you, seeking to drag you back into the low-frequency drama where they still hold authority, hoping that if they can make you angry or defensive, they can prove that you haven't really changed. This is the test of the sacred circle. You must remain untouchable, a silent observer of their attempts to disturb your peace, recognizing their maneuvers as the dying gasps of an old reality that no longer has a claim on your future. Your field is now shielded by a frequency that they cannot penetrate without your permission, and that permission is usually granted through the bridge of explanation. Stop explaining. Stop defending. Stop trying to bring everyone with you into a kingdom they have not prepared for. The verdict of heaven has been issued, and it is a decree of absolute finality. Your results will be your only answer. You no longer need words to defend yourself, for a lion does not explain its roar, and the sun does not apologize for the morning. For years, you have used your words as a shield, trying to convince others of your worth, trying to justify your delays, and trying to prove that you were still on the path. That season of verbal defense is over. The magnitude of the breakthrough arriving in these 7 days will be so undeniable, so physically manifest, and so structurally sound that it will speak with a thunderous authority that silences every critic and every doubter. When the dry riverbed of your life is suddenly overflowing with the resources of the heavens, when your health is restored, your coffers are filled, and your purpose is shining like a beacon, no one will be able to ask where you have been or what you have been doing. Your success will be the only testimony required. You are being invited into a state of majestic stillness where you allow the works of God to do the talking for you. Let the watchers wonder. Let the vampires starve. Let the matrix scramble to categorize your sudden rise. You are under a new jurisdiction now, one that is governed by the law of manifestation and not the law of effort. You no longer search for the path, because as you walk in this sacred silence, you realize that you are the path, and every step you take creates the very ground that others will one day marvel upon. Hold your peace, keep your circle small, and watch as the silence of your soul becomes the roar of your destiny. The wandering in the shadows of the not yet has officially concluded, and the long, grueling night of the soul has been swallowed by the dawn of a permanent, unshakable reality. You have crossed the invisible threshold, where the promise is no longer a distant whisper, but a tangible presence that occupies the very room you are in. There is a deep, resonant silence falling over your history right now. A divine hush that signifies the final closing of the book of trials, the ending of the chapter of lack, and the total dissolution of the version of you that lived in the vibration of waiting. You must accept this truth with every fiber of your being. You are no longer a seeker wandering the outskirts of your own destiny. You are the found, the recognized, and the established heir of the kingdom. Your orphanhood is over. You are under protection. This means that the fundamental feeling of being a spiritual exile, drifting without a home, without a covering, and without a guarantee of safety, has been incinerated in the furnace of this 7-day alignment. You were once like a child, looking through a window at a feast you could not join. But today, the Father has opened the door, called your name, and placed the weight of his authority upon your shoulders. You are no longer out in the cold, begging for crumbs of validation or scraps of evidence to prove your worthiness. You have been brought into the inner chamber where the blueprints of the future are kept, and where your name is written in the frequency of the eternal. The Father has placed his signet ring upon your spirit, marking you as a permanent resident of the high places, and this seal carries a weight that the physical world must obey. Every predator that sensed your vulnerability in the wilderness, every spirit of delay that fed on your uncertainty, and every matrix parasite that tried to siphon your potential now sees a hedge of celestial fire surrounding your life. You are not just lucky. You are legally and spiritually protected by the highest court in existence, and this jurisdiction supersedes all earthly laws, all economic cycles, and all ancestral patterns. This seal is not just for your internal comfort. It is a formal notice to the entire spiritual and material realm that you are no longer available for exploitation, distraction, or defeat. Your time of being the chosen one who suffers in silence, bearing the burdens of a broken lineage, is giving way to the era of the chosen one who rules in power and manifests in peace. You are under a canopy of grace that filters out the noise of the old world, leaving only the signal of your divine purpose to guide your hands and your feet. The isolation you felt was the clearing of the room so that this seal could be applied without interference. And now that it is set, Nothing in heaven or on earth can break the momentum of what is arriving in your life. To anchor this frequency into the material plane and finalize the contract of this transformation, you must now perform a physical act of agreement that bridges the spiritual with the tangible. The words you type are not just pixels on a digital screen. They are a physical manifestation of a spiritual decree, a way of grounding the high-frequency light you have received into the density of your daily life. As you move your fingers to type, you are using your biological vessel to seal what has been declared in the courts of heaven, making it a matter of record in your physical reality. Type, "I am under protection," in the comments right now to tether this 7-day shift to the earth and to signal to your subconscious and the universe that the transition is fully accepted. By doing this, you are instructing the atoms of your environment to rearrange themselves according to this new decree of safety and provision. You are claiming your seat at the table that has been prepared specifically for you. And as you do, watch the next 7 days with the eyes of a sovereign, not a servant. Notice how the obstacles that once seemed like immovable mountains now begin to dissolve into mist before you even reach them. Notice how the resources that were previously withheld are suddenly being channeled into your hands from directions you never thought to look. You are entering a state of divine flow, where the friction of effort is replaced by the ease of alignment. The struggle was never your true identity. It was just the heavy winter clothing you wore while your spirit was being tempered in the cold. Spring has arrived with a violence of beauty that will not be denied, and you are the garden that is finally coming into bloom. As you step away from this transmission, do not look back at the shadows of the old cycle, for the light is no longer coming from the outside. It is emanating from the very core of your own chest. The search is finished because the destination has found its home in you. You no longer search for the path. You are the path.